Today we're talking about inspiring ways to renovate and build with sustainable materials. This is the Evolution Show. Welcome to the Evolution Show. I'm your host Johan Landgren. Today we're continuing on the recycling theme. And with me I have a very inspiring craftsman and carpenter who works with renovation and building with sustainable materials. Welcome, Leif Persson.
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
You're a carpenter and you've been interviewed quite recently in Swedish Radio, in Swedish National Radio.
Yes.
And you were invited because you're a carpenter and you renovate like most carpenters, but you're using old materials and you're reusing materials, even back from the 50s and 60s actually. Kitchen cabins and things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work.
Yes, I mostly work in apartments and with people who wants to do different adaptations of out of their needs and mostly I work in old used materials. I put together a pile of waste into a new kitchen, you can say.
Yeah. And what's different with you, I think, that you've been collecting old materials since the 80s, I think, when you were quite young. I read in a Swedish magazine, and what you do is that you take basically natural materials, mostly like wood, if you can, I guess, like kitchen cabins and so on. And I read that you use these materials because they are of high quality. They will last long. I think you even mentioned in the program that some of them might last like 100 years, maybe even.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
So, where did your inspiration come from? Was it when you were young and were you inspired by the environmental cause, or was it the creativity, or why were you starting to think these ways?
It was both. I was as young. I was very involved in the environmental movement and that we had in these days in Sweden. There was a votation about nuclear power, and I was involved in this campaign for against nuclear power. And I was also interested in material and building and art, different kind of art expressions. So it somehow just came quite natural to here we have something. What can I do with this thing? And it started that way, and yeah.
So did you go a traditional carpenting education from the beginning? Did it start like that, or
no?
How did it start?
No, it started with different. I helped some friends who had a house or something like that, and then I started to work in a theater with props and stage design and things like that.
Okay.
So that's and then I also went for a short while in an art school, and.
So one can say that you have kind of a little bit of a creative background. So you have seen a little bit of that world, so to speak, outside the carpenting world. Maybe it's not so strange for you to think that way. That we'll come back to that. That you're being you like to be creative when you're rebuilding stuff. It's not just going from A to B, finish a project, and then it's a process for you.
It's a process, and it's a process together with a customer, and it's a problem solving from the beginning.
So maybe we should start with the problem. Why do you think it's important that we, in the carpenting or the craftsman area, that people change their attitude and way of working towards building stuff? That it's not only a matter of buying new and building fresh. It's very much about using the material we have, not just consuming all the time, buy new stuff. And in my previous show, I talked to Sophie Griepenberg when we talked about clothing and so on, reusability of clothing, using new fabrics, being open-minded to new technologies, but at the same time thinking of that we have to use what we have. Is that a little bit how you think as well?
Yes, we could say at least in our country, everyone already have a kitchen. So why should we at all build a kitchen, except from the completely new houses? But still there is a kind of need. People want to adapt for living in different ways, but there's enough. We already have enough material.
Yeah, I guess you have seen. I mean, have you been working with like traditional carpenting as well? Like you get someone calls you, they want to renovate, and they ask you. If we take a step back, if you in a couple of years ago, before you started this, I guess you've been working as a traditional carpenter as well, or
yes,
was it?
I made some quite usual works, yes. But all from the beginning, I had this. I started my company 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and from the beginning, I had this kind of method of using old things. But there have also been periods of not so much work in this way, so I just had to get money. I made usual kitchen works and just put up an IKEA kitchen or something like that. Yeah.
And we'll come back to pictures and what you have done, and people will see how creative you are, because I really think you are, and the kitchens look really great. And I would not think, if when I saw the pictures, that this is kind of old materials from 50s, 60s, and you can say in detail more later how old they are and so on, and where you found and so on. But if we start with comparing the traditional carpenting today and what you're doing, what would you say is the biggest differences? Do you have maybe friends and colleagues that are kind of the typical carpenter, and what do they think about what you're doing?
Yes, they like it when it's finished. Yes, but some of them think that the process is a bit strange to start with this. Scrap things, but it's always ends up in something very nice and attractive. So
does it take longer? I mean, if for you to finish a project than like a traditional kitchen where you basically buy IKEA, it comes in a package and they basically install it, or is it more complicated for you to find the right material for the right thing? And how is the process for you? Is it different?
It's different from project to project. Sometimes it's quite finished when I start. You know exactly what to do. But in some projects, it's more like just get a lot of things into the apartment, and then you start to okay, so let's see what we have here, and we start to put it up. And sometimes it's a process together with a customer. But sometimes it's planned. I also get questions from people who want to get rid of an old kitchen, because and that's quite new and that's interesting. Some years ago I had to find everything myself, but for the last maybe half a year or something, I get emails from people I don't know, who just says that yes, we are going to throw out our kitchen from 1962. Do you want it? You can come and get it. And for me, it's sometimes a problem because I don't have so much storage. It's expensive to have room for putting up old kitchens in a pile. But usually I try to find, when I get an offer to collect an old kitchen somewhere, I try to find already before I get it, where can I use it, and do I have a customer for this? And then it could be sometimes quite easy. It's more or less like building a new kitchen. You just take the old one and you put it up somewhere else. You use the same cupboards and maybe adapt some of them or build one or two new ones as a copy as the old ones. So it's a little difference between different projects.
But let's say if you want to finish a project, if someone says that I want to have it finished in 4 months, and if you compare that to a traditional carpenter who can offer a similar thing, but obviously not your creative version, but is it a big difference? That's one of the questions, but other questions is also, of course, of price. People might wonder if, Leif's kitchens looks great, but is it very expensive? Is it more expensive than buying a traditional kitchen? How about?
No, it don't have to be more expensive. You can buy new kitchens that are very expensive too, and for me the material is mostly very cheap, and sometimes I'm quite used to this also, so it don't have to take so much longer time.
No,
actually.
No.
We also have a system of tax reduction in Sweden. When you are using handcraft work, you get a 30% tax reduction on work, but not in material. So for me, this is in my kitchens, you have more expenses in work time and less in material.
So,
but if you buy a new kitchen, you could pay the same just for the stuff you buy. You can sometimes pay as much as you do for all my work, just to get the things. Because many kitchens today are quite advanced with in all functions and so.
So, but you could combine the machinery, the modern machinery equipment in a kitchen with your kind of 50s, 60s version, and
yes.
So you can have the best of the both worlds.
Yes, right? It's no problem.
So that's important, I think, to pinpoint. And in terms of environmental footprint, it's interesting here to mention that the construction industry, they really contribute to the carbon emissions in the world, and it's about 8%, for example, from the cement production in the world. Which is a great part of the construction industry. It's carbon emissions, and in Sweden, it's about half of all the emissions in the construction industry. It's from the cement industry. So how can we work with that? I mean, you're renovating and you're building stuff, but have you any ideas, or have you thought about how the construction industry and in your line of work, how you can, aside from just using the materials, but also other materials, because a house constitutes a lot of different aspects, like the building walls, the roof, everything, and
there is today fantastic possibilities to build in wood, even if you make bigger structures, and it's been built amazing wood houses, and then you have the emissions are bound to the wood. I don't know if I say this correct in English,
but we understand what you mean. Yeah.
So that is a very good thing. Then it starts quite slowly, but there is some projects going on.
There's one example I don't know if you heard about, but it's recently this Swedish startup called Evolution. They developed a house built on hemp, actually. They're using it as insulation in the walls. And they're using lime, which lime is also something used in cement together with sand to make concrete. But according to them, and so far these houses are really effective in insulation. So that's maybe can be one example of what you can do. And
you can also build clay houses, and there's a lot of materials to use. And another thing, not to forget, there is a lot of houses out there. There is no need. Very often, there's no need to cut them down and build up a new one. Use the one you have. It's a lot of possibilities to reduce and say, what can we do with this house? How we take care of these walls already existing. Yeah,
that was also one of the previous guest's most important points. Sophie talked about clothing, and she said that we need to consume less and use what we have. And perhaps that's
it's the same. It's very important, because clothing are a big industry. There's a lot of everyone have quite a lot of clothes, so it's a big impact. But when you come to a house, it's such enormous amounts of material just to put up one house, and all this material you waste in the first house you cut down. And there's not especially good systems for reusing these materials. They are mostly going to flat out in the ground. It's not very good reusing systems of houses.
No. There's this expression, or you talk about the circular economy, creating something that in one end you put in something and it comes out in the other end, but it will return to point A, so to speak. Reusing everything, basically, not throwing away something outside the system. And that's difficult to create. More and more I think about it, I can't see that we have kind of a really functional system like that. Maybe in a micro system somewhere. I know there's some experiments in Denmark in an industrial area, but it's still small, tiny place and so on. But we need to start to think about this. That's my point. Just really. But how about, okay, let's think about a person who wants to renovate a kitchen. And how do they, if they want to contact you, or if they want to start a process with you, is it that they first, they look at their kitchen, let's say it's, does it have to be an old kitchen in the 50s, 60s? Or could it be a modern kitchen that they could renovate with old materials? How is the process for you normally? Is it that you sit down with the customer and they tell you, we want to renovate this and this, or are you telling them that this is the opportunity, this is the possibilities you have, I have this and this material, or do you just go out and search for the materials if you don't have it? Is it tricky for them? Is it tricky for you to create anything, or are you limited a little bit to what you have?
The first thing when I come into a kitchen is to see what they have, because everyone already have a kitchen. So my first question is, what's the problem? Why do you want to build a kitchen? I see you have one. You have water, you have a fridge, and you have everything. So what's your problem? Is it broken, or is it bad working, or is it lack of space, or what's your problem? And we start in that end. Can we solve your problem in an easier way than to change this kitchen? And sometimes the problem is very small and very easy to solve. Sometimes it's I can see, okay, you need a new one, because kitchens made the last from the 70s to today, they are mostly when they are turned down, they are quite bad. You can't do so much about them because of the material they're made of. It's made of chipboard, and but sometimes it's we work with the kitchen that's already in the house, and we do adaptations. We can customize it. We can rebuild some of the cupboards maybe, and change the shape, and maybe put in something new and use something of the old, and mix together. We also build new. All materials are not reused. I use wood. We build also new cupboards, so we can make a mix of so 50% is reuse and 50% is new made, and we can fit that together in a nice way.
Have you seen any developments in the recent years because of the increased interest for environmental issues, especially here in Sweden, but globally obviously as well, but you're working here, your market is here, so is the interest for your kind of work increasing both among customers, was my first question, and the other question is among your colleagues, or do you have carpenters coming to you, are interested to see how you work? Because if I were you, my obvious thing was think that maybe I could educate others carpenters coming in now, because they must be interested. It must be at least some enough people to have, like, you know, an education that you can run. Just my obvious thought. Have you seen any interest like that? So partly the customers and other from colleagues.
I can say that I definitely see an increasing interest from customers and from media and things like that, and so that's for me it's a big difference to work now and like 5 years ago. It's much more of these questions to keep the old kitchens. But from my other carpenters, I have no contacts with other ones, so who's interested now.
That's maybe you have a huge opportunity here. You're in the lead.
yeah. I guess. Of course, there are a lot of skilled carpenters out there who, with no problems, can rebuild an old kitchen. It's no problem. It's a lot of good craftsmen out there. But as far as I know, there's no one in this town that's working with this as a special branch. This is the way we work. It's more like if someone asks them, okay, we can do it. But many people I come to, they say, it's, finally we found one who, because we don't want to throw out our old kitchen from 1942, and we have three builders have been here and all say that, we can't make it. You have to take it out. And then they find me in Google or something, and I say, it's no problem, we can use this one. And they, you can. So it's hard to find carpenters who is interested.
But you work in the Stockholm area, so
yes.
That's you're basically around in Mälardalen, I guess. Kind of. Yeah. So you're working mostly on apartments and houses as well. I mean, renovating kitchens and things like that.
It's mostly apartments.
Mostly apartments.
Yes.
But are you renovating other sections of the apartment aside from the kitchen?
Yeah. Everything.
Everything. Okay. And furniture as well.
Yes, a bit. I have a part. I'm a part of a workshop, and my colleagues in the workshop are working a lot with furnitures. But personally, I do very little furnitures. Yes.
Is it because it's more work, or is it not economical for you?
No, it's just specializing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because it's built up that way with my how I packed my tools and everything. Is that it's built for to bring it. I have like a mobile workshop I bring to the apartment. And in the workshop, it's more specialized in making this furniture stuff down there.
I understand. Because why I ask is because I heard recently that some municipalities in Sweden, instead of buying new furniture, they want to renovate as much as they can, and they save a lot of money. But they are, like you say, in your special kind of line of work, it's hard to find anyone who actually can do it. So they throw away stuff. I know my friend of mine in Falun, he works at typical authority in Falun, and where they are moving the whole office to another place, and just because of the move, they're going to throw away so many furniture, and he said like he couldn't understand. There was nothing wrong with the furniture. Some of them, were damaged here and there, but basically they were sound. They were still good. So, and you don't know any colleagues that work with furniture?
Not in that scale, like having a complete office with 50 tables. It's not in that scale. But when I lived like 20 years ago, something in Värmland, it's another part of Sweden, and I had a short time work in a workshop for the town, and then I worked just in that way. We had a huge workshop with all machines for carpentry, and it was like a place for unemployed who could get a short period work. And I had for a period a job there. But almost nothing was made in this workshop because most people who were in there was no carpenters at all. They just were unemployed and had a place to go to. So all these machines were standing there unused, and I said, it's crazy. So I found in the workshop there was a stove for children made in plywood. It's a small one, and it was broken. And I said, what is this doing here? It's from one of kindergartens. So I repair it. It's been here for like half a year or something. Okay, so I repair it, and I made and I took our little car we had, a little van, and I drove to the kindergarten and said, "Here's your stove back." "Oh, we forgot it, but you made it, you repaired it." "Yes." "You have anything else?" "Yes, we have this bed for dolls, and we have this, and we have this, and we just picked up a lot of broken things in this place, and I bring it with me to the workshop and repair it." So I started to call with all the places around the town and said, "You have anything broken things?" I come with a van and I pick it up, and next week we'll get it back. And so I had a full-time job.
And that's fantastic. I mean, that's what
that could easily be done in all cities everywhere.
Yeah.
Just invest in a workshop, put one or two skilled persons there, and you can have the rest of the crew could be people you learn into the work.
Yeah, because my idea for this program was actually to talk about future skills, what we need for the future that goes hand in hand with sustainability, because that's our core point, core approach here on this show. And what I lack is typical kind of work that you're doing to repair stuff, both to have the skill, obviously, but you say you have colleagues that have the skill, but they don't have a system or they don't have a shop specializing in doing this. No. So people don't know about where do I turn? I mean, if I have something I want to repair, either it's a municipality, it's a company, it's a private person, it's very difficult to find someone who can help me. Where can I do this? Because I think people want to do it, but they're not used to doing that, and they are used to having the alternative. Just go to IKEA, go somewhere else. It's cheap. I can buy something new. It's a hassle. It's a lot of work for me to throw things away. I don't have the time or the energy to do that. But if you have, let's say, a guy or a girl coming to pick your stuff up, for example, just repair it, come back. I mean, it's not that difficult.
No.
So that I think that your line of work should be growing, and I think it has a potential to grow a lot. It has to grow because we don't have an alternative, as I see it. I mean, if people in developed countries, let's say India, if they would live like we do here in Sweden, like Sophie said in the last program as well, that in Sweden we are consuming like we have 4 planets. It's impossible to continue like that. And I think slowly we are starting to realize this. But people still don't know there's a Leif Persson out there that I can contact. So that's but I think we should move on and instead of just talking, we should show a little bit what you're doing. So let's look a little bit at some of the projects you've been involved in, and then you can describe and tell people about it.
Yep. Yeah, it's pictures of different examples of how to think in a sustainable way when you build a kitchen. Because except from working with reused materials, we also work with new materials, but then it's made of solid wood. And there's also the way to think that when you are building a new kitchen or a new kitchen out of old stuff, it's also have to fit into the house in a way that it's not so strongly hanged up on fashion. It's more like if you have a house from 1940, it don't have to be a kitchen from the 1940s, but it should be like a kitchen that suits the house in a way. And also that the kitchen it's made in a special way to follow the house in a way that when the next owner of apartment come there, they are not thinking that this we have to throw out and make our own, because it's already made for the place. And that's an important thing, and that's something that maybe makes it in a way more advanced building, but also it's customized not for the owner but for the house, and that's a big difference. If you hopefully it's both, but it has to be customized for the house. That's an important thing.
The first picture here you have, it looks like a quite modern kitchen, but it's not really that from the beginning, right?
No, it's in a house from the 20s, and it's not the original kitchen in any way, and it's moved to another part of apartments, so it's completely new made, but we used all the shapes of there was no original kitchen left in the house, but there was other original carpentry in like cupboards and things like that in wardrobes and in so we could pick up the shape and the profile in the doors and things like that. So we made more or less a new built kitchen, but it fits in to the house it's very it's when you see the other parts of the apartment, you don't have a picture here. It's the same model in everything. So
same style.
It's the same style, yeah.
And the sink looks a bit different.
Yeah, it's a bit different. It was not in the original, but it's all everything here is also in natural materials. It's stone and clay and pure wood and steel.
Yep.
We used the old wall, less material in tiles.
Okay, so here is this in the shop?
Yes, this is in our workshop. Here we are using 2 old windows, and we are putting them into a frame, and it's going to be built in as a room to divide 2 rooms.
Okay.
So it's built in like this. We have torn down a part of a wall, and on the other side it's a kitchen, and this side it's the living room. And under these windows you have an island of cupboards.
Oh, nice. So is that going to let in some light, or is it going to be a cabin of some sort that you have stuff in, or is it?
No, it's just like a wall, but without taking the light. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but it's also to use old material.
This is somewhere in Stockholm, I guess,
it's
an apartment.
Yes, it's in Stockholm. And of course, it's afterwards. It's the finish around it. It's not.
It's not going to look like
no,
but you can see the point.
You see the point and how to use old windows in a new way. This is another picture from our workshop. Here you can also see some furnitures
in the background. Yeah.
Yes, we are in for repair. And here you see one cupboard. It's a new made.
What kind of wood do you know? Is it?
It's pine tree.
Pine tree. Oh, nice. Is it going to keep this natural look, or are you going to paint it?
No, it's painted in linseed oil color.
Yeah, linseed I like as well. I use it when I paint my beehives, actually.
Yeah. So, and inside you open the doors. It's not shelves, it's drawers. Behind the doors in the cupboard, it's drawers you can pull out, and it's like a modern system inside. Yeah,
that's good in a kitchen.
Yeah,
we can see in the next picture here.
And here's the finished kitchen. The one thing you saw in the last picture is down in the corner under the apples.
Yeah.
But here you see the other cupboards, and we see the. It's also a wood stove.
Mm. Yeah, it looks really. I like. I mean, it's you have a lot of light in this kitchen thanks to the color, obviously. But using wood is I really like that.
Mm-hmm. And it's an old style kitchen, or what you say. But it's still modern. All the modern functions. It's a washing machine, things like that. Mm. And you have in the corner under the clock, you have the original cool. I don't know the word, but it's like where you put your food in a cool place without electricity.
Yeah, the classic kind of
and it's the original one from 1907.
Yeah,
and the rest
still working.
Is still working very good.
It's good for your potatoes, for example, and things like
absolutely.
That. Yeah,
for a lot of things.
Yeah.
You need you don't need the fridge to so much.
Yeah.
This is a picture of a pile of scrap, but for me it's it's material. This is for most people. This is going to the
building materials,
to the waste bin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But for me, it's here we have material for a whole kitchen. It's no problem. We can build of this. It's wood and it's finished structures you can use. And this is from another house. It's one of a few outside Stockholm. It's an old from 1800 something house built of timber, and the whole interior is covered with clay, and also the floor is made of clay, and the whole renovation is made completely ecological. And we spared a part of the old kitchen you see down in the left corner, but I shortened down the two doors and made this hole. You can see it's for a baking table you can put in, and that we made a new one to fit into the old cupboard, because the owner really wanted to bake a lot, and so we customized the kitchen to bakery.
That's great. Yeah.
And the other parts in the end of in the rear background, you see it's a new wood. So parts of it's made in place. It's not in the workshop. It's made in place of solid wood, but everything is built out of what we could find in the barn of old drawers and old doors. You can see there's a yellow door and there's some doors. One is sitting up and one is lying there. So the cupboards are built around these things we found.
And that was that something that the customer asked for, that they reused materials on the spot, or was it something you just found there?
No, there was beside the house. It's a huge barn, and it's filled with a lot of things. So we had a gold mine of material to find. There's a lot of things built in there of old material. Here is a much more modern project. This is you don't see everything of it, but it's a modern kitchen, or more or less. It's from the 90s. It's from 1998, I think. But it was very torn down. And you see 3 doors over there. It's 3 original doors. And from the beginning, the whole way was in the same level. It was a whole wall filled with exactly the same doors. And we tried to find out how can we do a new interesting kitchen out of this without taking away these things. So in both ends we have built open shelves that will have no doors, and in the half of the picture you can see there is another level, and you just cut down the cupboards in place without taking them down. It's cut in place, and the doors are shortened in the workshop, and we put them back later and paint them. And here you can see the result. And we also made a new part that is you can clearly see what we made new and what we used the old ones. And it's this bench you can see in the foreground.
Is it a kitchen island?
Yeah, you can see. Yeah. And it has drawers also on the other side. That is so from the other side you can use it more like a desk, and you have pencils and things like that in other drawers.
Yeah,
so some of the drawers are not so deep, so you can have from both sides. And the worktop is made of clay material.
And it looks like it's during the Christmas time.
Yeah, it was last Christmas.
Yeah.
It was finished just before Christmas.
Okay. So this is one of the recent ones you could say that you've been working on.
Yeah.
Oh.
And here you have the other end of the line. It's the most simple kitchen you could imagine. It's built outdoor on an old you say veranda.
Yeah.
A porch.
Porch.
On the porch. And all the material is reduced from old furnitures. So it's a shelf system and a bed and different.
But when you say outdoor, is it accessible from the outdoor, or is it just? I mean, it's a roof and it's
a roof, yes, but it's outdoor, but with a roof.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're in the garden, but you have a floor and a roof, but it's open in two sides and closed in two sides.
So if you're like gardening and things like that, it's perfect. Or you have a summer, you're doing something for the summer, and you're grilling or barbecuing or something.
Yeah, it's a summer house.
Yeah. Okay.
So of course it will be hard to work there in the winter, but
and it's popular. I see more and more people like to do that. So
and this is the finished kitchen in evening, colored lights, and it's very cozy, very nice.
And how this project, for example, how long did it take to finish? Was it half a year, or was it 3-4 months?
No, a week.
A week.
Yes.
Oh, from idea to finish, or
no, to build it.
To build it, yeah. But when you're discussing it, it's like, is it several months with the customer, making all the plans and?
No, it's quickly. It goes quite quickly.
Okay.
Yes, this is a place where you can just so we can do like this. Oh, that's nice. Poof, and you do it. So it's not a long story.
No, great. Yeah, thanks for that. Let's move on to some other questions. So, how about if you think about this on a broader picture, perhaps even outside Sweden? Do you think that how can we influence others with ideas like yours in countries like India and China, for example? Because they want what we have, whether it's a car or it's the newest technology and so on. But we can't have a planet where they copy our lifestyle, because then we basically need 4 of them. So if people want to learn from you, what's your best advice to people when they are, whether it's in Sweden or in the US or in the China, when they are planning for a new kitchen, for example, they want to buy they want to build a new one, or they want to refresh the old one. Do you have any advice for people to start with before they run to the IKEA store or what have you?
I think in this matter it's we here in Sweden who have a lot to learn from India, I guess, because in these many countries it's much more natural to they have a knowledge to repair, because the need of repair is big in a low economy country. So it's maybe more of a question of if they want to do like we do, and we buy our new IKEA kitchen. That's the kind of we put the label that this is how it should be here in this kind of living.
Have you? You work in Sweden here, so it's you're looking at this market, of course. But have you got any inspiration from other countries, or have you have anyone contacted you? Your webpage, your homepage is in Swedish, so it's not like people are going to Google you and maybe find you. It's tricky, I guess. Some really, some people are really good at finding stuff, but it is tricky. So maybe in the future you will have an English site as well for education. I don't know, but back to the question: have you been inspired by others, or have you looked more like in the traditional 50s, 60s kind of construction era here in Sweden, or where do you get your inspiration from?
There is a lot of inspiring projects in other countries I've seen. In books or in internet, and in some few things I've seen in place, but in America there has been already like in the 60s, 70s there was a movement called wood butchers and I still working on, but they made incredible houses made of things you find in the local area. Amazing houses built in this way. Wood butchers, and they've been a good inspiration. And I also know that in England, in Denmark, in Holland, there's amazing projects with reducing and building houses and interiors. Much more than in Sweden. So this is not an area where Sweden is any kind of foregoing
leader. So no. But and also one question I would like to ask before we move on is, if you think about your line of work, it's today a typical young carpenter, for example, if they're educated from today, or let's say 10, 20 years back, they learn a specific thing. They're focused on a certain area of the carpenting, or the education is edged out to be modern, to become a carpenter in a very conventional way. But I have friends and so on that I have a friend who's like 60 years old, and he tells me that people know he's a carpenter. He tells me that a carpenter today, they know so little. They are they know some things, obviously on what they're working on, but if you would ask them to do the work an electrician is working on or something like that, they just look like a question mark. And I think you're working a lot with your creativity. So how can you, if you're a young guy or girl now as a carpenter, how should you think to work outside the box a little bit more, like you, and not just follow the footsteps of what you learned today? Because as I see it, that's not very good for a future where we have to adapt and think creatively, and to repair stuff, not just think that we can just order something, you will get it and you will just assemble it and it's finished. That you have to think a little bit outside the box. How do you think one should approach young and also people like your colleagues? I mean, it's a tricky question, but do you have an idea? Because we want to push for that, obviously.
I think that the educational system is built up around how how it works in the system of industrial production and things like that. So when you go to a school today to learn building construction, it's a lot of things you meet out. It's very, the education is especially made for the market. The pupils will meet when they start to work, and what they meet is prefab. It's industrial made things. It's IKEA kitchens or other. But also the houses are very much built out of parts that arrives to the site, and you just put them together. And of course, if you go another kind of carpenter, more traditional carpenter, cabinet maker education, you will learn the traditional carpentry. But then you seldom end up in the construction branch. You will end up in a furniture workshop. So these people who are customer normally call when you want to make a repair in you call up a construction company, and you get the people who are educated in mounting already made things.
So it's kind of hard to move outside the system, as you think today. Is it you have to be kind of a have a speciality as you have to see that I can work towards this, I have this in these customers, because I guess you have built up your customer base with time. So people recommend you perhaps via a friend or a neighbor who have, or maybe they've heard you on the Swedish radio, I don't know, and so on, and read about you in some magazines, because it seems to be very few of you.
It seems so, yes.
Yeah, it's good for you now, but
I would love if there were a lot of people working this way. It would be no problem. It would just be fun.
Yeah.
But it's also about the skill of craftsmen. In older days, you had a much longer education. You were apprentice. And after many years, you could start to do your own work, and you had a good knowledge in all parts of your branch. But today it's much quicker. Everything goes much quicker, and it's much more specialized in what the employers need. This is what we need now from the big companies where the work is.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned that, because like the skills and things like that, maybe that's some of it that people don't get the skill because the education is short, or it's very specialized. So that's kind of hard. But if anyone would be interested in learning from you as a student or as a carpenter, are you open for that? Or
I'm open.
Yeah. And where will people find you? Do you have a homepage, right?
Yes.
It's a Swedish, but still, it's what's the homepage?
Ombygg Stockholm.
Ombygstockholm.se.
Yeah.
So that's where you can. They will find some of your projects as well, some pictures.
Yeah, some of them. It's. Yeah. I have to say it's not a very updated.
No.
But it's you have all the basic information. It's a nice site, but it's I don't have a lot of updated pictures and things like that.
No, some of them are the pictures we saw today. They are at least the last one. Then that was like from last year, so that's quite new. And some of the others, I don't know if they were.
Some of them is various, I think.
Yeah,
but
and if people, if it is for the Swedish audience, then is it if you want to get some work done from you, and you're in Sweden and you're outside Stockholm, is that possible, or do you only take works and projects in the Stockholm area? Have you been somewhere else as well, or you actually mentioned one project I know in Dalarna, so that's it happens obviously.
It happens, but it's hard. I have a family in Stockholm, and so it's and it's not a day's work. No. I have to be there with all my tools for 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
This job we made in Dalarna, it happened to fit into. We actually went there, the whole family.
Yeah.
And the rest of the family went skiing.
Yeah.
And I was in this house working to build this kitchen, and my wife and the children were skiing. So that was a way to solve because it was an interesting project, and it was nice to do it.
Yeah.
But it's not so easy to work outside.
No.
No.
Is it something we haven't mentioned today that you would like to add, or that you thought it might be interesting to know in your kind of work, or for the future, or something you've thought about that might be interested for people to know about renovations projects, or how one should think about when you approach a new project? Is it tricky? Is it? I think you mentioned it already, that it's not more tricky. It's not harder to, and it doesn't have to cost people more to have a renovation of a project than being more creative, like you are, and using reusing materials and so on. If I understood you correct.
Yeah.
So that's, it's been really a pleasure having you here.
Yes.
I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed this conversation. If you enjoyed this conversation as well, feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. In the next episode, we'll talk to Robert Falk. He is CEO and founder of Einride, a company who is the first one actually to build and develop self-driving electric trucks, even without a cabin actually. So it's going to be interesting to see that as well. As always, we like your feedback. Was it good or bad? And if you want to see the show as soon as it comes out, consider subscribing. I hope to see you in 2 weeks for the next episode.